investment was required, and that's certainly what we're doing. We do need to provide more support. We're seeing with young people in particular significant rises in signs of distress, and whilst it's been exacerbated by COVID, it had been occurring for a number of years before that. So if you look at things like the level of presentations to psychiatrists, prescriptions of antidepressants to young people, of emergency department presentations of young people, we have seen a concerning trend there over a number of years, and that's why we're investing so much. I mean, in the budget we put $280 million into Headspace, which is of course the youth-focused mental health support.
And that's a good down payment, there's no doubt. But right now, if you're in Victoria and you are desperately wanting help, what kind of wait times are people experiencing, and how can those people be helped?
Well, look, we put in back in the last lockdown in Victoria about $32 million to open 15 head-to-health clinics. People have called those clinics more than 10,000 times, visited more than 5,000 occasions. We're putting in money right now, literally this week, to surge more staff into Headspace across the 32 locations. You can certainly get in touch immediately with organisations like Lifeline, like Beyond Blue, that provide that support. And we've invested very heavily in the Headspace wait time reduction project as well. So we are seeing some of those times come down.
And we're going to see some announcements imminently to boost some of those support services again, given we've got now 3 states in significant lockdowns?
Well, look, obviously South Australia going into to lockdown is something that we need to look at, and look at providing support to South Australia as we have to New South Wales and Victoria. And one of the positives, Patricia, is that we've worked very well in recent times with the state government. So both New South Wales and Victoria are also backing Headspace and recognising the significance of that organisation, because whilst we've seen concerning signs in mental health across the board, they are particularly significant for young people, and that's a big part of why we've invested so much into Headspace.
All right, so there's going to be an imminent announcement about South Australia getting its own specific mental health support?
Well, look, I wouldn't sort of say that, other than to say we obviously are very open to talking to South Australia, as we have with New South Wales and Victoria. They've obviously just announced their lockdown just a few hours ago, and we do see when lockdowns are announced, when states go into lockdown, we do see a rise in those signs of distress, unfortunately. And as I said, if you compare the figures during lockdown to the figures of 2 years ago, they are up significantly for those support services, and certainly we'd be very open-minded about assisting South Australia.
And the University of Sydney's Ian Hickey says the fact that suicide rates are steady and haven't jumped is obviously good news, but avoiding that depends on continued government financial support. Like, you can't sort of say mission accomplished. Does the government commit to providing the required support, even if that means a significant amount of new funding is needed?
Well, I think the point Ian makes about the need to be ever vigilant and ever focused on this area is absolutely right. I mean, the PM set up the role that I'm doing back in December because he's personally very focused on this. He is very determined that we drive down the rate of suicide in Australia. It's a positive thing. The rate of suicide is not rising, but we still saw 3,300 people take their own lives in 2019. One of the things we did in the budget, Patricia, which is really significant, is $61 million additional funding for suicide prevention programs right around the country. 3/4 of people who commit suicide are men, and it's very important that we ensure that programs are as tailored as possible to the highest risk areas, and that's something that we're doing further work on right now. These suicide prevention programs have done a good job, but there's always more we can do.
Given the extension of the lockdowns, the one in Victoria, the new one in South Australia, should there be a change to allow Social Security recipients who have lost work access to the COVID emergency payments?
Well, the rules in relation to social services payments and the wage subsidy, the payments and so on have been established by the Commonwealth in recent weeks in response to further lockdowns that we've seen, and I'm not here to advocate any particular change to those programs. I think the level of Commonwealth investment in supporting people through lockdowns has been, without precedent in the history of our country, and it's been a significant part of our success in dealing with COVID. And of course, those payment levels now through those programs are comparable to where they were back in December of last year, and I think they've been very important.
Just on issues around people who are continuing to work but obviously are still in lockdown, and the kind of mental impact of just being in this kind of uncertain environment. What's your advice to employers, bosses, about the way they should deal with rising potential mental health issues? Should they be really aware of this at the moment, and what should they be doing?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, and I think absolutely they should be aware of it, and they should respond with sensitivity, and to understand that for many people it is a tough time. I mean, it's tough to do homeschooling with kids. It's difficult for people who are on their own. There's a lot of people who are facing significant challenges now, and I think it is the right thing for employers to do, to be cognizant about that, and to be as flexible as possible, because it's a tough time, and lockdown has impact on many people in the workworkforce.
你就可以把这个声音音轨给去了，然后做一个那个甲壳版的这个就去 lockdown 下来这个lockdown 对话。
Australia has joined the US, UK, EU and other allies to accuse China of orchestrating the global hack on the Microsoft exchange software. It's the first country. Australia's largest trading partner is also accused of contracting hackers to commit cyber-enabled intellectual property theft for government advantage. The Home Affairs Minister, Karen Andrews, says China will suffer significant reputational damage as a result.
They have many nations that have come out and publicly attributed this attack to them. So there is significant reputational damage to China. They have been called out. And we will continue to call out not only China but other nations if they do launch and undertake significant attacks here on Australian and Australian businesses.
Richard McGregor is a senior fellow specialising in China at the Lowy Institute. Welcome.
Hi there.
Firstly, these allegations relate to the global hack on the Microsoft Exchange software, among others. What disruption did that cause?
Well, there's two allegations, actually. There's one of the Ministry of State Security in China hacking 12 countries between 2011 and 2018. Australia is not named in that. And that's, worldwide hacking for economic espionage. And then there's the Microsoft one, which is related to that. I think the Australian ministers talked about that today. And that is essentially getting into the computer systems of multiple companies for the purpose of stealing IP, economic espionage, if you like, and taking that back to China and giving it to Chinese commercial enterprises to their benefit.
What's the significance of Australia joining its allies to publicly call out China?
Well, I think the really big deal about this statement overnight is that it's not just Australia and the US. The Australia has joined with the US and countries like the UK and Canada, sometimes New Zealand, on a lot of issues. But this is Japan, it's the Kiwis in this time, it's the Canadians, of course, it's Europe and it's NATO. So you've never really had a collection of countries all on the same page on an issue like that, condemning China. It makes it harder for China to pick out countries which criticise it for retaliation, and it really makes a much bigger political deal of it for China to handle.
Will China's reputation actually suffer? Does naming them have any material impact?
Think Lab 是不是少个 K？
Well, that's a good question.
特意这么写的。
China doesn't really seem to care too much about. They don't like criticism, but as far as reputational damage goes, there's been a lot of that in Western countries over quite a few years now, and it doesn't seem to deter China at all. Certainly in the past, when the US administration has called China out on this, under the Obama administration, China agreed to stop for a while. But things have, gone. I think we're well past that now. China is much more powerful. It is much more willing to take risks in the service of its interests. and it really does not want to sort of listen to Western criticism at all. So there might be reputational damage. I'm not sure what that does, though.
No, it's not clear, is it? Is the degree of these allegations surprising?
Well, yes and no. I think it's been quite well known for some time that, Chinese state interests have contracted out hacking to, universities, hackers, computer specialists and the like, more experts than them. It's not unlike how governments all around the world, including the Australian government, often subcontract their services. But of course, in this case, it's entirely illegitimate. So that, I think, the way the detail of the Department of Justice indictment is new. The numbers of countries which are named in that indictment as being targeted by China is new. And I think the collection of countries, as I mentioned before, which has condemned China, that is new.
Now, the use of contractors has been highlighted. Why is that an important distinction?
Well, I guess it gives you a sense of the vast hacking ecosystem in China, or the allegations about it. Certainly when I lived in China, we had heard about certain universities being used for hacking, but this seems quite systematic. The indictment issued in the US overnight actually goes into some detail about the university which was used, about the front company that they used to make it look as though it was unrelated to the Chinese state, about the individuals involved, their email addresses, their methods for sort of issuing invoices and the like. So the detail is quite fascinating, even if the